And yes, that is what we're doing tonight, setting the record straight on some of the issues that have played out and transpired over these past 7 days. And of course, looking ahead, this being the week that some nominations will be starting, at least from ODM. I have a power panel here of people who've reported and worked in media houses for years. And of course, some of us are still gaining mileage in terms of years. Yes, just to meet them real quick, on my top right, we have John Kiarie, who has been here, believe it or not. You probably remember him as the man who made you laugh on Ridiculous, but he actually worked here at Nation Media Group from '94, I believe, and till 2007, has been a cartoonist, and yes, has practiced here at the Nation Media Group. And on the opposite end is Ledama Ole Kina, who has worked as a journalist at Reuters, and this was for 1 year, I believe. This is '94 to '95, but now is a media proprietor, owns Sidai FM vernacular station, the Masai vernacular station, and soon to come Sidai TV. He says all things are in place to set the ball rolling, and you can look out for that. But as well is an aspirant for Narok Senate, and John Kiarie is an aspirant for Dagoretti South Member of Parliament. The other two, not politicians, but they do a lot of political reporting, or at least have edited stories that have touched on politics. We have Dorothy Kweyu, has been a revised editor here at the Nation Media Group, but is now a freelancer and a consultant. And my colleague who brings you the political stories and also features from time to time, Enock Sikolia, our senior political reporter. So let's start off with what you probably saw on your phone. A quick image here of what was sent to many, and it is screenshot. So presumably someone was watching this on TV, and it had presumed lineup of the NASA leadership. What you can't quite see at the very corner there, the NTV, is the question mark, which is what was represented in this very graphic that was used on NTV today. Now, many people actually asked me directly, is this the lineup? Because as it was sent, at least on social media, it made it look like we had made a statement on this particular issue. Let's play a response from James Orengo on this issue that not only showed here on NTV, but also on other media houses, the presumed list of NASA leadership.
There is sensational news appearing in some sections of the media today, which again have no factual foundation. And would have thought the best way of getting this kind of information is to come and talk to us. And I had said all that the media has been asking NASA to do, or to give to the information to the public, NASA will do it at the appropriate time and when its work is concluded. But the constant attempts to try and create stories around issues that NASA is dealing with, either at the level of the summit or the National Coordinating Committee, it is those who are writing these stories that we should explain to the public.
And he says they're writing these stories because this also appeared in the dailies in that particular week. And this being the issue of the NASA leadership, it has been an interest point. Just let's have a quick response, lady and gentlemen, on this particular issue. Clearly was a bit misleading what we saw. I don't know if you all received this on our WhatsApps and WhatsApp application. What did you think at first? Was it clear that this was a question mark?
There wasn't a question mark.
Actually, there is. It's just hidden by the. If my director will just play it, just show it there. There is a question mark just at the end. It's just not quite clear, and from the angle at which it was taken.
But the point is, it never took me in.
Like you didn't believe the list?
I didn't believe it.
Even if you saw the NTV logo there?
I didn't believe it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And Ledama?
Mark, I think I expected it to happen because NASA has been very secretive in making sure that they do it right. They get this time right, and they remain united. So what happens when you give the media a blackout, then you create two scenarios. You have a team that wants to make money and create, fake news and be able to sell that fake news. Then you have a team.
A team within ODM?
Maybe within the opposition, or maybe within people outside who want to make money, who want to appear as if they know it all. So I think I'm actually very proud of NASA for having kept everything so, tight, such that nothing comes out. So it gives people the imagination. We read about fake news all the time. We get fake news that so-and-so has died, and you're actually standing next to him. But so this issue really confused a lot of people.
But it wasn't quite, well, to term it fake news, it would seem that we stood with it as fact, but and we were trying to imagine the most likely scenario. I mean, how do you read it?
Two things, Mark. One is, here we've got people who have practiced journalism on this panel, and we can have an academic discussion as to the effect of the question mark, where you're asking, is this the lineup? Question mark. Or you say, this is the NASA lineup, and you put a question mark. The academic discussion can be had in such a forum. Okay. But when it's thrown out there to the public, and especially carrying the NTV logo, it is taken as the truth. And remember, even in this era of fake news, there are people who are still, after seeing something, will refer to NTV to verify the information. So if they saw it on NTV, it now becomes the truth. But I'd like to also say that there's something within political communication that is called testing the waters. Okay. So I would like to know who the source was for this thing, because even NASA itself can release such information to test the waters ahead of their actual official announcement.
Just to see the reception.
Just to see this. And this has happened before on many issues, where political entities put out some news there and then very quickly come to deny it if it comes out bad, or come to own it up if it comes out good.
Before Ledama responds, you've experienced this in terms of...
When you look at the situation or the issue that occurred over the week, we have to analyze it from this perspective. NASA has 4 political parties. Yes. That is Ford Kenya, whose party leader, Moses Wetangula, wants the flag. Has ANC, Musalia Mudavadi, wants the flag. ODM, Raila Odinga, wants the flag. Wiper, Kalonzo Musyoka, has repeatedly maintained that this is his time. Now, at this time, the NASA coalition has a committee that came up with scenarios. And now, political journalists, as Ledama said, political journalists have sources within that committee. And these sources, they will give you, because you trust them, they are members of that committee. So whenever they give you information, you are likely to go with it. Since there is no official communication about this is a member of the committee who is giving you that information that this is the lineup, you're likely to go with it. And going back to Ledama, to Ole Kina, Ole Kina said that if you keep the media give them a blackout, on a blackout. And I have, for example, let me use, I'm not saying Orengo, but I'm saying let's use, I have Orengo's number. I'll call Orengo and ask, you guys, what have you agreed? And he gives me the lineup. He represents ODM, but yes, he's in the NASA coalition.
And but there's always want to remain as anonymous.
It's a big problem that the political formation called NASA that is suffering from. Because you see, when you're giving out message, you want as an entity to be cohesive in how you give out the message. So right now, we do not even know where official NASA messaging ought to come from. Whether it is coming from the individual parties or from the committee or from, even within individual parties. For a good example is Wiper, where you don't know whether it is going to be Senator Hassan Omar or Nyenze giving out information. And at times, they've even been giving conflicting information. And as such, you're never sure whether it is the formation that is playing games with the public or whether they just can't be able to give out a cohesive message.
Just Dorothy, give a response first.
As a matter of fact, I would be extremely skeptical if I got that information from any of the 4. If I got it from ODM, I would be very skeptical. If I got it from Wiper, I would be very skeptical. If I got it from ANC, I would be very skeptical. and who is the last one?
For
This reason, that any one of them would wish to...
Interest.
Yes, there's vested interest. But if I check with the others, and I ought to have their numbers if I'm a credible political writer, then if you say, we haven't come to that yet, then it will force me to go to the third one and the fourth one, you know, so that I don't just come out with what I call alarmist, because this is most likely to cause alarm.
Ledama paints the picture of this being a good strategy, that they are keeping people in the dark strategically. And of course, John Kiarie says, no, KJ says, this is actually a show or sign of confusion.
I don't believe that. I think, KJ, if I were in Jubilee, which, for God, anyway, I'll never be, I would be trying to fish out information. And it would be in my best interest to try and create a scenario to convince the public. Because the facts are out, they're very clear. These guys have been tight-lipped, they have kept quiet. So when KG says it is very confusing that they don't know where the communication or the communication plan or what the communication plan for NASA is, I think it would be trying to bite too much into the plans for the...
Well, they're definitely keen on NASA.
They're very keen on it.
They are.
And they would try to create a scenario
Your competitors.
whereby they would confuse the public. They would try to create scenarios where they would show the public as if NASA is not even united. And in this case, they have done it very well. They have remained so united.
Yes.
And if you go back and read the coalition agreement, there are proper channels of communication. There's a methodology for getting anything out, for communicating. So I think those people who do not know what NASA is planning, they're out there trying to create a scenario that shows that these people are fighting.
If I can respond to Ole Kina. Now, when you look at that, before a journalist, let me just say the story was actually written by a credible journalist from NTV. And before the story goes out, you need to call more than, as Dorothy has said, you call, like if there are 4 political parties and their representatives in the committee are there, you call at least one each party.
Yes.
Then if they have a similar tone, if they speak in a similar voice, then you will know that there is something.
Right.
But if you find that one is contradicting, as Dorothy says, you have to go back to the drawing board. That is what I am made to believe, that the reporter who did the story actually did that.
There's a thorough check before.
If I had a reporter like that working for me, I would fire him. Because you need to have facts. Facts are very stubborn. If you go there and you say, oh, I'll create a story because of similar tone, then you're not telling facts. You shouldn't be writing.
Let's speak about facts.
We are saying, what we are saying is, for example, Dorothy here, Ole Kina and KJ, you are in a particular committee, and you're members of that committee. You represent different interests, but I call you and you give me the same like story. Then that story becomes, it's not credible 100%, but it might be 90% credible.
That's why you see, that's why I see it's qualified. If it's in an article in the paper, it said credible sources within a committee or who would like to remain anonymous. That's the caveat that we normally use.
I said, if we're having an academic discussion, it would even be very hard to fire that journalist, because they will be falling back on the question mark, because they didn't say that this is a lineup.
This is a lineup.
Yes.
They just asked, is this the lineup?
And that's a position.
My big point was, we have seen situations where NASA says one thing from one channel, something else is beamed out through an insider to the social media. Then we go to the parliament building and there is an MP within NASA giving out conflicting information on the same issue of the flag bearer. And then a political party comes up through Secretary General, organizing secretary, or an official of any position.
Right.
And they come with a totally conflicting story. And that's what I mean when I say that NASA as a unit is not communicating cohesively. I'm not saying that it could be fake news or untruths, but it is conflicting information. The classic example, as I said, Senator Mtarajiwa, is a case of what Honorable Nyenze came out and said.
I'll explain
and he spoke up, and in his words, he was saying, I'm speaking on behalf of my party leader in Wiper, and I'm saying that there is no other option that we have. And in fact, it was so aggressive because he said, if we do not get this candidate, and he was referring to Honorable Kalonzo, and we end up with Raila, what we are saying is that NASA is threatening to become Nyasa. It is threatening to become the Nyanza.
Real quick.
What about if we look,
Super Alliance?
What about if we look at it from the point of view that we're not just looking at as a person, Nyenze, what he represents? What does Nyenze represent? First of all, he's the leader of minority in the National Assembly.
Exactly.
And he is a top-notch politician in the Wiper Party. So whatever he says,
he's a senior member of
Wiper. And you see, one thing that I've also experienced with the current crop of politicians, you have a mobile number. You have, for example, my number. Then Nyenze has said this and that, but I call you for clarification. You don't pick my call. You don't respond to me. What will I do? I already have news. I already have Nyenze, who is the leader of minority.
Let me explain something.
I didn't just sit there and went with the news. I wanted clarification, but you denied me clarification.
Let me explain something to you on this particular issue of Nyenze. Nyenze was referring back to the coalition agreement that CORD had. And the words were very specific. They said, when we make the government, we will only run for one term. ODM never made the government. Okay? When you read the NASA agreement, there's a clause in the NASA agreement that says the CORD coalition will stand dissolved immediately. The parliament is dissolved.
Okay, so you're giving context to this.
Okay, so what Nyenze was trying to do, he was trying to make a lot of noise to see whether his candidate, who is Kalonzo Musyoka, will get an upper hand in the discussions.
Right.
But what will a journalist do?
Yes, but Dorothy, as you respond to what Sikolia has just brought up, there's that scenario where there's a narrative being controlled that NASA is confused and NASA says no, we're very much united, and if you take sides as a media house and say no, actually NASA is united and this is a position, or we take the position of what the government is saying, that they're confused, they don't even know who their leader is. In such headlines, if my director would be able to grab what I'm looking at here, Raila cuts short U.S. tour to attend NASA crisis talks. This was actually in one of the dailies nation, the Daily Nation, and the comment here by Sally says, we still remember this nation is fighting NASA. A headline like this makes you look like you're an enemy.
True. My take is that until it is done, it's not yet done.
Until what is done?
Until they come up with a presidential flag bearer and they come out, my own take is that they should come out, call a press conference, and somebody, maybe the nominations head, says, now reads a statement saying, our presidential flag bearer is so and so.
Well, they've said April 19th after retreat they will do that. How do we treat this situation? Because it's an interest point. People want to know.
In the meantime, if I were on the political desk or if I was a political reporter, I would exercise maximum caution.
I agree.
And by that, I mean that I would treat any partisan source very suspiciously. Because I'd want to ask, why? Why is he
telling
me, Why is he telling me? You want to probe that and to really come to grips with, is it his business? Is he the one to announce? And why is he running with it? Personally, I think that these leaks are meant to cause friction, they are meant to cause animosity and to scuttle the discussions.
I agree
because
with you.
these people
100%.
have their followers.
But we don't ignore, we can't ignore it.
They have their followers, and if, for instance, I'm a NASA person,
Okay.
and I'm a NASA person, say, affiliated to Mudavadi. Let me say that because Kenyan politics is so ethnic. So since he comes from my part of the world, let us say that I'm for him.
Yes.
And then somebody comes up and says that this is now the lineup. I'll be angry. And I'll want to question why.
And I'm in agreement.
And why has my leader allowed that to happen? Because we have waited for so long.
Quickly,
I'm in agreement with what Madam Dorothy is saying. The thing is, and this is the line that I'm taking, and I'm consistent about it, is that NASA is not doing itself any service, having many lines of communication, and most of which are claiming to be authorities.
Well, he says they have clear structures.
Which are claiming to be authorities. Because when Wiper goes to Emali and parades the entire Kamba leadership, and they pass a message, and they claim to be part of NASA, but their message is very consistent. It is Kalonzo or the highway. Then we see the leader of minority in Bunge carrying the same message and still claiming to be within NASA. But the same people meet in a rally and say it is not yet done. You know, and then before we know it, we hear that there are discussions on how the seats are going to be shared and ultimately a leak. Now, you cannot blame that on the journalists, as Enock is saying. You can blame it on non-cohesive communication coming from this entity called NASA that has many...
I think the problem is this. There is that perception that there are several channels of communication through NASA.
And perceptions are a reality in politics.
They are a reality, but I think the thing is, the opposition, Jubilee, would want to buy into that because they'd want to create a confused scenario whereby these guys are not even united. Now, if you read the coalition agreement, there are proper methods of communication. There's a communication plan.
But your people are not living by those
Is that just good on paper, or is that just what plays out in reality?
Actually, we can talk about that later. But you see, the thing is, the summit, which is made up of the 4 principles, are the ones who have got to sit together and agree. So I know the committee that sit down and does the technical. There are 3 levels. There's a committee that sits down, and these are very credible gentlemen. They will not be giving out information. So I repeat, the information that you're getting information which is designed to create a perception in the public that NASA is not united.
Sikolia,
Ole Kina, look at it. What was one of the core reasons for coming up with the committee was to give a scenario, possible scenarios of the joint ticket for the opposition. Now, a journalist will not stop poking. You will continue poking. As a committed political journalist, this is the time the opposition is looking for the man to battle Uhuru Kenyatta. Remember, Jubilee already has the presidential candidate. So the opposition are looking for one. As a journalist, you'll keep poking. The committee is sitting to create scenarios. So you'll keep calling. You'll keep calling today. If they deny, tomorrow you'll still call. And that is where KJ now comes in, his point comes in, the communication part. Because you're looking at it. If I call Nyenze, and he gives me a scenario, and I'm looking at it.
But what would you call Nyenze and he's not in that committee?
No, I'm just saying.
As an example.
I'm giving an example.
Right.
Now, let's look at the members. If I call Mudama, he's a member. And then he gives me a scenario.
But he's not a member of the technical committee.
All right, let's just take a break here. Let's take a break here. You'll allow me to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with this handling the communication from the various teams that are represented in the political field, because there are many communicators, representatives from each party in these coalitions, and then we're meant to kind of synthesize and sift through the information and give something consistent as media. We're coming back shortly.